Good morning, I'm Stacy and welcome back to Beauty Tips. As lately, everybody got to know what about makeup, right? So I'm gonna show you what kind of product you will need to do a full face of makeup or how to outdo your makeup. So yeah, it's easy to learn, the basic stuff, the basic step. Everybody can learn and why that I said that everybody can learn to do makeup because even boys, not the LGBT community, but even boys, they could do it if they try to learn it. So why not? Just take your time and study from the basic step, and then to um, to be more details at, as you could. Body of missing family kidnapped at gunpoint in California found in orchard. Okay, so a baby girl, her parents, and her uncle have been found dead in orchard days after they were kidnapped at gunpoint in Central California. 8-month-old and her parents and her uncle were kidnapped by a man on Monday from their business in Merced. Their bodies were found in a Merced County orchard about 150 miles southeast of San Francisco, or what fears have been confirmed. On Monday, firefighters found a Amendib struck truck on fire, and a farmer found a phone belonging to one of the victims on a street in Dos Pablos, a town 30 miles southwest of Merced. The four were taken by a convicted robber who tried to kill himself a day after the kidnapping, authorities had earlier said. He made no ransom demands, but the sheriff said he believes it was a financially motivated crime and that he may have had an accomplice. Relatives of suspect Jesus Salgado, 48, contacted authorities reporting that he had admitted to them he was involved. Mr. Salgado tried to take his own life before police arrived at a home in Atwater. He is under medical sedation in hospital. I fully believe that there was only at least one other person involved. My speculation is that it's financial. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. No official details have been released about what will happen over the coming days, but it is anticipated that the Queen will be given a full state funeral, as is traditional to mark the death of a monarch. It is also expected that her body will lie in the state to allow the public to pay tribute. The King will sign off the final plans in the coming days. Life of service. Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary was born in London on 21st April 1926. At the time, no one expected her to be queen, as she was third in line to the throne behind her uncle and her father. During her record-breaking reign, she dedicated her life to serving her country and Commonwealth. In a radio address in 1947 on her 21st birthday, she said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your services, and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong." Princess Elizabeth became queen in 1952 at the age of 25, when her father, King George VI, died. Her coronation took place 16 months later at Westminster Abbey. The Queen held a number of other titles, which will now automatically 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 pass to her son and heir. She was head of the Commonwealth, commander-in-chief of the British Armed Forces, and supreme governor of the Church of England. She was also patron of more than 600 charity and organizations. Wife, mother, and grandmother. Away from her official duties, she was a devoted wife and mother to 4 children and dedicated grandmother to 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. In 1947, she married her wartime sweetheart Prince Philip at Westminster Abbey with a relatively simple ceremony as the country was still recovering from the war. King George VI wrote to her about his feeling about giving her away. I was so proud of you and thrilled at having you so close to me on our long walk in Westminster Abbey, but when I handed your hand to the Archbishop, I felt that I had lost something very precious. The Queen gave birth to Prince Charles in 1948 and to Princess Anne 2 years later. Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, who were born in 1960 and 1964, respectively, were the first children to be born to a reigning monarch since Queen Victoria had her family. Until his death in 2021, the Duke of Edinburgh, her beloved husband, was always by the Queen's side. She described the Duke as her constant strength and stay. And in 2017, the couple celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary, the only royal couple to ever reach their platinum anniversary. A record-breaking reign. The Queen reign saw 15 different prime ministers, from Sir Winston Churchill to Liz Truss. She was more widely traveled than any other international leader and the world's oldest head of state, always using her own distinctive form of quiet diplomacy to represent the United Kingdom around the world. In 2015, she also became the longest-serving British monarch in history, passing the record set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. As head of state and head of nation, Queen Elizabeth II was widely regarded as a symbol of stability, working tirelessly to make sure the monarchy remained relevant during a period of immense social, technological, and economic change. She was a monarch without equal who will now be mourned across the globe. What happens now? Upon the Queen's death, Prince Charles has immediately become the new monarch, and he will be known as King Charles III. A period of national mourning has begun, and it is said to last until the funeral, which is expected to take place in 10 days' time. Her body will be moved to Buckingham Palace, where it will likely remain for 5 days. The government is not expected to announce any other business unless urgent to allow focus to fall completely on the Queen. Major sporting events could now be postponed as a mark of respect. Final suspect in Canada mass stabbing dies from self-inflicted injuries after being run off the road by police. The final suspect in the recent mass stabbings in and around a Canadian reserve has died from self-inflicted injuries, an officer has said. Miles Anderson, 32, was found near the town of Rosthern in the central province as officers respond to reports of a stolen vehicle being driven by a man armed with a knife. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP) said. Officer rammed Sanderson's vehicle off the road into a ditch, and he was taken into custody but went into what a spokeswoman described as medical distress. He was taken to hospital but died shortly afterwards. All life-saving measures that we are capable of were taken at that time, Commander of the RCMP, Assistant of Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore said. She gave no details on the cause of death, but an official who spoke on condition of anonymity said Mr. Citizen died of self-inflicted injuries without giving any further details. 10 people were killed and 18 jury after the attacks in and around the James Smith Cree Nation, an indigenous community in the central province on Sunday. 10 victims remain in hospital, 3 of them in a critical condition. China urges citizens to stay at home for National Day's holiday as Chengdu lockdown extended. China is urging people not to travel during next month's National Day holidays to reduce the spread of coronavirus. The country's health authority has encouraged people not to leave their cities for the week of holidays following 1 October. Wu Langyu, an official at the National Health Commission urged people to stay put due to the risk of the COVID-19 virus. People in China often travel both abroad and domestically during the week-long holiday. The country has been fighting to contain the highly transmissible Omicron variant by imposing various lockdowns. Shanghai was locked down in April and May, while other big cities such as Xi'an and Shenzhen has also endured lockdowns and restrictions. In the run-up to the National Day holidays, more cities have been urging residents to avoid non-essential trips due to coronavirus outbreaks, which have been reported in every region and province in recent weeks. Hong Kong, 3 deaths after crane collapse. 3 workers have died and 6 others were injured after a crane collapse at a construction site in Hong Kong. The crane fell onto a number of cargo containers, which were being used as temporary offices. Some workers were in the containers when the crane down shortly before 11 a.m. local time, 4 a.m. BST on Wednesday, said fire officer William and Kate. One man was declared dead at the site in Kowloon after suffering a skull fracture, while another died after being taken to hospital, authority says. Officer on Twitter. He wrote full support for police and 06 agents faced with a refusal to comply on Avenue. Henry Masty faced with a driver who deliberately ran over them. They thought they had to use their weapon to neutralize him. Refusal to comply or crime are on the increase. In the past 24 hours, our ambulance has been confronted with 2 particularly violent refusals to comply. Faced with these absurd, we must be behind our police. This deputy prosecutor of Nice, Marty, said at some point the car turned back to be in front of the police car and rammed into it twice. She said the officer fired a single shot at the driver. A video on social media showed the car in front of the damaged police vehicle driving backwards while an officer in the street points his gun at the driver's window. The officer shoots just after the driver appears to stop the car. Police union said the officer acted in self-defense. The latest incident took place in the same week, the trial for the 2016 Bastille Day truck attack that killed 68 people in Nice and got underway in Paris. Some experts say the number of deaths caused by officers using their weapon is increasing, which French researcher Christian Malhena from France's National Center for scientific research, CNRS, saying the rise in incidents came after legal changes were introduced in 2017. The changes were brought in after a series of attacks by extremists in the country in 2015 to 2016. In another recent incident in the western city of Reims, a 22-year-old woman was killed after police opened fire on the car she was in during an anti-drug operation, warning the driver. Earlier this year, a French police officer was charged with involuntary manslaughter after shooting dead two men in cars as they sought to escape a police check on the Pont Neuf Bridge in central Paris on the night of French President Emmanuel Macron's re-election. New broadcaster France Info said, based on its own count due to the lack of officer statistic, 9 people have been killed by police in similar situation this year. Last year, 4 people were shot dead in such circumstances, according to police figures. Hong Kong. Hurricane Earl threatens Bermuda and could bring life-threatening swells to U.S. East Coast. Earl, the second of the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season, is expected to continue to strengthen on and become a major hurricane, a Category 3, which has sustained winds of 111 to 129 miles and can cause devastating damage. Hurricane Earl, which is turning towards Bermuda, is forecast to strengthen and bring dangerous surf and rip current conditions over the eastern U.S. coastline later this week, forecasters have said. Earl, the second of 2022 Atlantic hurricane season, had maximum sustained winds of 100 miles on Wednesday night, made a Category 2 storm. It was expected to continue to strengthen and became a major hurricane, a Category 3, which has sustained winds of 129 miles and can cause devastating damage. Although Earl's center is forecast to pass south of Bermuda, tropical storm force winds are expected on the islands this afternoon through early Friday morning. The U.S. National Hurricane Center (NHC) said hurricane force winds are possible on Bermuda later today or tonight if Earl's track shifts farther west than is currently predicted, that Miami-based weather forecasters said. Swells generated by Earl are building near Bermuda and are expected to reach the U.S. East Coast later today, the NHC added. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions through the weekend. A hurricane watch has been issued for Bermuda, a self-governing British overseas territory in the western North Atlantic Ocean. The island National Security Minister Michael Weeks told reporters that public services and government offices would keep operating but warned residents to brace for a tropical storm condition. Bermuda will certainly feel the effects from Earls, so we want to guard against complacency, he said. Further east, Hurricane Daniel was slowly weakening over open waters about 60 and 605 miles northwest of Azores. It had maximum sustained winds of 75 miles. Student who killed teachers with an axe is jailed for life. An 18-year-old student who attacked and killed 2 teachers with an axe at a Swedish high school has been jailed for life. Fabian Vidar Sitterholm was found guilty of 2 counts of murder on Thursday. He was sentenced to life in prison, which in Sweden means a minimum of 20 to 25 years, but it could be extended. Cederholm was a student at the school in Malmö, Sweden, third largest city, where he carried out the attacks. The victims, Victoria Enstrom and Sarah Book, were found on the third floor of Malmö Latin School, 10 minutes after the police were alerted. Students at the school that has about 1,100 pupils had gathered to work on a musical. Many locked themselves inside classroom when the attacks began. Malmö District Court heard Cederholm killed the staff members by hacking them to death with an axe. Judge John Kraft said Cederholm had also used a knife. These are two very brutal murders where the victims suffered severely, the judge said in a statement. Cederholm was arrested shortly after the incident on 21st March. He was not previously known to authorities and had no criminal record. Prosecutor Johanna had asked that Cederholm, who confessed to the crime, be sentenced to life. A lawyer representing Cederholm earlier had told Swedish media that the actions of the defendant were completely inexplicable. The court said the motive for the violent attack is not fully understood. Unveiled students returned to school for the first time after mass shooting that killed 21st. I want to just shelter her as a mom, just keep her home. But of course I don't want her to live in fear, said the mother of one student in Texas community. Students and teachers returned to school Tuesday in the heartbroken community of Uvalde, Texas, for the first time since 19 children and 2 educators were killed during a mass shooting at an elementary school in May. As children return to the classroom, the town continues to mourn those who were killed and demand accountability in deadly shooting at Robb Elementary School, during which law enforcement officers waited more than an hour before entering a 4th grade classroom where the gunman carried out the attack. The first day brought anguish for parents whose children died in the massacre. Stephen Gracia, whose 9-year-old daughter Elena was killed, said he was an emotional wreck Tuesday morning and felt a surge of anger. I couldn't find the tears, but then I thought back to my Ellie and know she wouldn't want me to feel that way, he wrote in a post on social media. Thinking of all the first day of school with my Ellie, no one expects to have to bury their child after leaving them at school, he said in another post. Jennifer Lugo, Ellie's mother, said in a post the night before the first day of school that her stomach was in a big knot, and she was sure the family would be leaving the house with tears and not smiles. I'm missing one of my babies, she said, adding that Ellie loved school and was always excited to get up and get ready with her sister. Kimberly and Felix Rubio, whose daughter Lexi was killed, said ahead of the first day of school that they were frightened for their for their 5 other children. I don't know that the school district has done everything that I would like to see as far as security measures, but I also know it's important for the kids to have some sort of routine, so trying to balance what's best for them, Kimberly said. Lexi has been on her mind, she said, and meeting her youngest son's teacher was incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult to go on campus knowing that Lexi is not going to be meeting a teacher this year, Kimberly said. Students across the state were marooned to school Tuesday in support of the Uvalde community. Robb Elementary has not reopened since the shooting, and its surviving student has been scattered to different schools in the area. The school district also added virtual options this year for parents who didn't feel comfortable sending their children back into classroom. Parents arriving at some local school Tuesday morning were greeted with taller fences, increased security, and cameras, a large law enforcement presence, more counselors, and even emotional support dogs. Outside Dalton Elementary School in Uvalde, Esther said that one of her children had attended Robb Elementary at the time of the shooting and had received counseling because she was traumatized. But Natalie, whose children are 7 and 8 years old, says she felt safer with the added security measure. I'm on the positive side, so I hope that what happened last year won't happen again, she said. For right now, I think they are in good hands. Pre-kindergarten teacher Belinda Remise says she wasn't nervous about the start of the school year in the shadow of the tragedy. She's happy that school is starting again, but also just a bit sad for the kids, she said. Her nephew attended Robb Elementary last school year. We asked him and he just stayed quiet. So I know he's a bit nervous, but we are happy that school is starting back up, and when we start, I would think it will get all better, she said. We have to just continue to move forward. Late last month, Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo was fired by Texas City's school board, which voted unanimously to oust him. The embattled chief removed capped 3 months of outrage over the botched law enforcement response to the shooting at Robb Elementary. 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 8 seconds passed from the time police entered the building May 24 until the gunman was killed, Texas Department of Public Safety Director Steve McCraw has said. A scathing report released in July by Texas House Committee investigating the mass shooting found systemic failures and poor decision making by law enforcement and the school district. And her husband Julio have made helping their 10-year-old daughters return to school a priority. The girl, Madison, was at Robb Elementary the day of the shooting. The family has enrolled Madison in a private school, which they say made safety upgrades after the shooting. I want to just shelter her as a mom and just keep her home, but of course, I don't want her to live in fear, she said. Here's what you need to know about Liz Truss, Britain's new leader. Sometime compared to the UK's first female leader, Margaret Thatcher, Truss has also been accused of being a political killman. London as a girl and a young woman, Liz Truss protests against then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and called for the abolition of the monarchy. Decades later, having risen through the ranks of Thatcher's Conservative Party, Truss, 47, on Tuesday was appointed to the United Kingdom Prime Minister by Queen Elizabeth II. As she headed to No 10 Downing Street, Truss looks eager to rule in the image of the famously blunt and strong-willed iconoclast whose legacy still divides this country. Her victory means she will become the country's third female leader, after Thatcher and Theresa May. The Iron Lady, as Thatcher was known, was the 20th century longest-serving British leader and birthed an ideology, Thatcherism, that still dominates the party with its low tax, high-growth economic liberalism. Serving as primer from 1979 to 1990, when she was forced to resign by her own government. Thatcher was a strident coal warrior and a supporter of free markets, and especially close to President Ronald Reagan, one of Britain's most divisive prime minister, revile and revere in almost equal measure to this day. She's best known for her policies. She's best known for her policy on deregulation, privatizing state-owned companies, and smashing the power of unions. She died in 2013. Whether international or not, observers observers and the public have pointed out Truss appears to have a habit of recreating iconic Thatcher public appearance. While serving as Foreign Secretary, Truss was accused of consciously mirroring Thatcher by posing in a Challenger 2 tank while visiting British troops in Estonia. A famous picture of Thatcher in a Challenger tank in Germany in 1986. When visiting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Kremlin in February, she wore a fox for hat that again was compared to that worn by Thatcher on a Russia trip in 1987. During the Conservative leadership contest, Truss wore an outfit strikingly similar to one Thatcher had worn for an election broadcast in 1979, a black blazer and a white shirt with a bow tie at the front. For Truss critics, the similarities to Thatcher's are the best premature and worst ludicrous. I don't think there is anything in it. They're completely different people. Truss supporter Andrea Andino, 55, insisted outside the venue where Truss was announced the new leader of the Conservative Party on Monday. Andino wore a t-shirt in Liz with Truss. She's different. I don't think she will follow Thatcher in any way, she added. Timothy Kirkhope, a Conservative member of the upper chamber of the British Parliament, also dismissed the comparison, but for different reasons. I regard any comparison between Truss and Thatcher as derisory, he said in an email. I worked as a government whip under Margaret Thatcher. She was a colossus in politics. There is absolutely no way that Truss could ever get anywhere near the achievements of Thatcher, he said. Truss herself complained to BBC Radio 4 in July that women tend to get compared to Thatcher whether they resemble her or not. I'm on my own person, she said. James Cleverly, who served as an education minister under Boris Johnson, echoes these sentiments. She's a woman in politics, though comparisons are inevitable, and he said, she is Liz Truss, she's her own person. To those of us who have studied Thatcher, she's hardly in the same league, at least on current form, said Professor Tim Bell, an expert on British politics and the Conservative Party at Queen Mary University of London. While Thatcher was regarded then and now was a conviction politician who embodied her beliefs, Truss has been accused of being a political chameleon, flip-flopping on major policies and criticized for lacking hard and fast principles. She was an activist for the centrist Liberal Democrat Party as a college student. We do not believe people are born to be ruled. She said while arguing passionately for the abolition of the monarchy at the party conference in 1994, a testament to just how far she has traveled politically. Truss campaigned for Britain to remain in the European Union, only flip side and later support Brexit once the country has voted to leave in 2016. The commitment to Brexit and unlocking its supposed benefits is now a core pillar of her platform, an attitude that could lead to a heated and expensive legal battle with the European Union and the Republic of Ireland over the complex of Northern Ireland Protocol. While Truss said during the Brexit referendum campaign that Britain shouldn't spend years in massive divorce from Europe, she may be about to preside over exactly this. Born in Oxford in 1975, Mary Elizabeth Truss is the daughter of John Kenneth, a math professor at the University of Leeds, and Priscilla Truss, a nurse. In the biography section of her website, she described her parents as left-wing. When she was 4, the family relocated to Paisley, a town near Glasgow in Scotland. They moved again in 1985 to the northern English city of Leeds in West Yorkshire. Truss frequently refers to herself as a Yorkshire woman. A falsy attempt to contract her upbringing with the largely affluent Southern English background of many conservative members and activists. Throughout her leadership campaign, Truss said her vision of conservatism was inspired by seeing fellow students at the local public high school struggling in an overly bureaucratic failing system. Many of the children I was at school with were let down by low expectations, poor education standards, and a lack of opportunity, she said at her leadership launch July 14. Former student and staff at Raleigh and also local politicians dispute Truss' portrayal, accusing her of unfairly meddling the school for political gain. It is located in one of the most affluent areas of Leeds, and it certainly could never be described fairly as a sink school, he said via email, referring to British terminology for a failing and underachieving school. Her contentions about her deprived background as the daughter of the university professor are a load of nonsense, Crithope said. After graduating from Oxford in 1969, she abandoned the Liberal Democrats and joined the Conservative Party, the dismay of her left-leaning father. He was quite horrified, she told the Times newspaper in 2012. After college, Truss worked as a graduate trainee accountant for the energy giant Shell and later the telecommunications company Cable and Wireless. In 2000, she married fellow accountant Hugh O'Leary, and they have 2 daughters. After a youth on the center-left university prime Truss for conservation to the right. I met Tories and I realized that they didn't have 2 heads and were actually good people, she told the Daily Mail in 2019. Truss stood as a Tory candidate in the election of 2001 and 2005, losing both times. It would take another 5 years before she was finally elected as the MP for South West Norfolk. Truss has served in various cabinet positions since 2012 under the governments of David Cameron, Theresa May, and Johnson. It was under Johnson that she was promoted to foreign minister, one of the most powerful positions in government. Truss was leading the transitions to a post-Brexit trading rim and forging new diplomatic ties. The Conservative Party may have ditched Johnson, but his brand of populism looks set to stay under the new prime minister. She stayed loyal to Johnson. She told the membership that they want to hear on the economy and taxations rather than any hard truths. She is a fierce Brexiteer and an anti-woke warrior, Bell said. Truss may be compared to Thatcher, but her critics believe she has much more in common with her predecessor. I regret that a Liz Truss premiership would be a continuation of the Boris Johnson style, Kipper said. A Truss government would be even more divisive and include individuals who are notable only for their extreme or eccentric view, he said. Steve Bannon expected to face state indictment in New York. The Manhattan DA office had opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Almost 2 years after he received a pardon from President Donald Trump in a federal fraud case, Steve Bannon is expected to face state indictment in New York. In a segment first shared with NBC News on Tuesday night, Bannon said New York has now decided to pursue phony charges against me 60 days before the midterm election. This is nothing more than a Persian political weaponization of the criminal justice system, added Bannon, who once was the chief of White House strategist in the Trump administration. The statement came after the Washington Post, citing people familiar with the situation, reported that Bannon planned to surrender Thursday. NBC News has asked the Manhattan District Attorney Office for comment. The district attorney office last year opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall, NBC News reported in February 2021. The previous year, Bannon was indicted with 3 other people on charges of taking money donated to help build a wall along the southern border. Federal prosecutors alleged that Bannon's We Build the Wall campaign, which raised more than $25 million, defrauded hundreds of thousands of donors who contributed to an effort to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, one of Trump's key campaign promises. Trump pardoned Bannon in January 2021, but presidential pardons apply only to federal charges, meaning New York is not prohibited from pursuing similar charges. I am proud to be a leading voice on protecting our borders, and building a wall to keep our country safe from drugs and violent criminals, Bannon said in Tuesday night's statement. They are coming after all of us, not only President Trump and myself. I am never going to stop fighting. In fact, I have not yet begun to fight. They will have to kill me first. Separately, Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress after he refused to answer questions from the House January 6 committee. A jury found him guilty on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in July. A woman jumped from a moving car after being kidnapped by a man who asked for water, authorities say. Jeremy Alaska, 31, is accused of holding the woman at knife point in Washington state. Authorities in Washington state identified a suspect Tuesday who they say carjacked a woman and held her at knife point until she escaped by jumping from a moving car. The woman had given water to Jeremy Alaska, 31, after he approached her vehicle asking for some in an incident that began in Vancouver, Washington. Early Saturday, the Clark County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Alaska is expected to be charged with kidnapping, robbery, and attempted eluding after he fled from officers, the sheriff's office said. The woman, who has not been identified, told authorities after she gave Alaska water, she allowed him into her car. Alaska produced a knife and used the threat of violence to take control of the car, the release alleged, adding that he drove roughly 15 miles to the city of Camas. Alaska slowed down on a dirt road, authorities said, and the woman jumped from the car and started banging on the doors of the nearby homes. A resident, James Wood, told NBC affiliate KGW of Portland, Oregon, that he and his family awoke around 4:30 a.m. to the sound of a woman pounding on the back door of his home and moving the doorknob. She was desperate to get in, which I can't understand. Wood told the station. She told me that someone tried to kill her and someone stole her car. Was 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 told the station that he called 911 after the deputies searched the area and found the car. The driver fled, according to the release. 11 minutes 11 minutes later, and about 8 miles away, authorities from the sheriff's office and the Vancouver Police Department were able to pin the car. And the release says Alexa was taken into custody after he tried to flee the vehicle. The release says he refused to provide his name and was identified through other names. The sheriff's office says it wasn't immediately clear whether he has a lawyer to speak on his behalf. Police say that they have found.
Turning now to breaking news in the investigation of that missing Memphis jogger and mother of two. Police confirmed today the body of 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher has.
Police say that they have found the remains of missing jogger Eliza Fletcher. Memphis authorities have confirmed a body found during the search for Eliza Fletcher was identified as the 34-year-old woman who was abducted during a run Friday morning. NBC News just Chris reports on the news details police have released and the latest charges against the suspect charged with kidnapping Fletcher. And that is the end for today. Hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya. Oh, and by the way, all the tips I gave you last time, I hope it worked, because it worked for me, and I think that it worked for most people with average memory. I myself have average memory, and I couldn't learn anything besides English, because I hate everything. I hate every subject besides English. The only thing that I find English is interesting because it was another language, and I hate math. I hate math. I especially hate math, and I don't want to, calculate anything, and I not good at calculating things. So that's why I hate math. And about English is that when I was small, when I was about 9 years old, I watched Disney Channel a lot, and that is when I know I like English, because Disney Channel is all about English. If you don't understand English, so yeah, I watch it, and although I don't understand a word it was saying about what is the movie about and what it's called, I just remember the melody. Phineas the Verb, right? I just remember that the song in the intro song, right from the start. I remember the melody, the way they pronounce, but I don't know for sure how they pronounce it. So I just remember the melody and I sing along. So that is when I remember all the stuff and all the words that I accidentally remember by remembering the melody. So when I said that music can help you a lot, I mean it. So if you guys try it, and if you have any, positive result, comment below, and follow for more if you like my tips and you find it effective. So yeah, thank you and goodbye. Oh, one more thing. I also like English, and I only good at speaking, and I'm not good at grammar. Yeah, I also not good at grammar. I only good at speaking because I can, mumbling to the sound, and like for example, they sing like what's going on, so I will like mama mama. I remember the sound. I don't remember what they're saying, and I don't know what they're saying, but I remember the sound. So when I grow up, it means when I was in secondary school or something like that, I learned it and I know, oh, so that's what it is, that what it was about, and yeah, that's how I learned it. And I only good at speaking because I remember the basic words, the basic step that they say. For example, hello, how are you? How are you today? You're good? Are you good? How are you today? I'm good. Thank you for asking. Like just basic stuff, and I get better and better through movies. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got. I don't know if I could help you with that, but I think for myself, I'm getting better, and you have to learn. You you cannot learn English without learning it. Uh, you know, without actually learning it. So you have to put time and effort into learning stuff, and eventually it will come out great. It will get you a positive result, and a, a very good result that you want. So don't give up, and don't lose trust in yourself, especially when you find it hard. Just took take a break, and get some air, go outside, have fun with your friends for a day if you're feeling stressed about studying stuff. And after that, you get it together, and yeah, just study, dude. That's it. It said two men, both at age 34, have been arrested and charged in connection with assault following an incident on the Royal Mile around 2:50 p.m. on Monday. The Queen died at her Balmoral estate on Thursday, 8 September. Her body was returned to London ahead of lying in state at Westminster, where more than 250,000 members of the public paid their respects, many queuing for hours through the night. Britain's longest serving monarch was laid to rest on 19 September at Windsor Castle following a state funeral. Patricia Agnes teen's skeletal remains identified through relatives' DNA after she went missing in 1975. The skeletal remains of a teenage girl who went missing in the U.S. state of Virginia nearly 50 years ago have been identified thanks to a DNA breakthrough. Patricia Agnes, also known as Chubby, was last seen in the city of Fairfax on 8 February 1975. She was 17 at that time. On 21 September 2001, a woman's remains were found by the construction crew behind an apartment complex and near a drainage ditch, along with some clothing. Fairfax County Police say the remains have now been identified as those of Miss Galdaway. Following the discovery 21 years ago, an initial review found she died from a gunshot wound to the head. The report also indicated the remains were likely that of an African and American female in her late teens to early 20s. However, cold case detectives have been working on this year with Altram, which does DNA testing and forensic grade sequencing and established the remains belonged to a white female. When I gave them my DNA, they sent it to the lab while they were sitting here in my living room, and they had a 100% DNA match within 15 minutes, she said. Mr. Dibley said Mr. Gildersleeve was dating an older man at the time who loaned her a wild Cadillac Eldorado with red interior that she was driving the last time Miss Dibley saw her. It was also the day Mr. Dibley noticed bruises on her half-sister. Bruises on her upper arms, her shoulders, and the back of her legs, she told NBC News. I said, "Well, why are you so black and blue?" She said, "I fall a lot." I said, "No, you don't." Police are keen to talk to her boyfriend, but they don't know his name, only that he was in his 30s at the time of Miss Gildersleeve's death and worked at a now-closed upholstery store near Church Street and Lawyer Road in the town of Vienna, Virginia. Almost 150 miles per hour, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center. Before and after images of the affected areas demonstrate the scale of the destruction. James Basco Smith, teenager, dead for nearly an hour after stabbing beams in court as attacker's convict. James was 16 when the assault, which has left him using a wheelchair and struggling to communicate, took place last year. Leon Rashid, 20, and Tyquine Lewis, 18, were convicted of conspiracy to murder him. Rashid was also found guilty of having an offensive weapon. A third defendant, Stephanie Pate Lopez, 20, was cleared of assisting an offender by helping to get rid of a Range Rover used in the attack. James was knocked off in his bike, which he was test riding for his mother, and knifed by masked men in Brixton, South London on 23 February 2021, jurors heard. He video called his mother, from his mobile phone as he lay on the ground, and he's effectively died in the street near his home before he was safe in hospital. James was with family members at the Old Bailey to see his attackers convicted. His mother, Lisa Basco Smith, said James did not have any issue with anybody in the area. He's a happy boy, always smiling. He's into music, DJing, was studying music technology, and has nothing to do with a gang lifestyle. When I look back to the day of the incident, I remember James was so eager to help me out and make sure the bike was working. He wanted to look out for me. He wanted to make sure it was safe and 100% rideable. My phone rang and I saw James lying on the floor. I remember standing on my doorstep waiting for him to come back. My phone rang and I saw James lying on the floor. I sunk when I saw him in the pool of blood. I kept asking myself, how can it happen in that space of a minute out of my eyesight? Miss Basco Smith said James had made some progress in his rehabilitation, adding, he has gone from a sporty, carefree, happy-go-lucky boy to someone who has been bedridden and is struggling to move or communicate. James and Rachel Duncan said, we truly need to end this cycle of violence that can often become generational. We need to eradicate knife violence on our streets. Jurors have been told James was hit by a stolen black Range Rover in Henry Road shortly after 6 p.m. Brutal and terrible attack. Prosecutor Edward Brown's Casey said this was a brutal and terrible attack. In effect, James Vasco Smith had died at the scene was only brought back to life by the immediate and significant efforts of the treating medical professionals. However, he has suffered a significant period during which there was a lack of blood oxygen to the brain, possibly as much as 15 minutes. Even though there was no reason for the attack, it was very determined and concerted and very nearly succeeded in killing the teenagers, Mr. Brown said. We don't talk enough about this picture of her. She's so beautiful in this. I mean, just look at her. Chloe is my favorite actress, and she also friends with the other favorite actress of mine, like Jennifer Lawrence in this picture, so that is twice favorite. I mean, double the favorite level.